As a tea professional, I simply had to go to the Grand Floridian and try the afternoon tea. And as a tea professional, I was disappointed. I have some serious gripes about this tea menu. I've never met a tea person who said, I wish there was less tea options. After 5 long years, I finally got to go back to the Grand Floridian for afternoon tea. This is a very hard to get reservation, very exclusive, and you have to prepay with gratuity included. It ended up being about $100 per person. The price includes a 3-tier tray of themed Alice in Wonderland treats, plus unlimited cups of tea and unlimited scones. When I saw the price point, I was pretty excited. I thought maybe we're gonna get some pretty rare exclusive teas. Unfortunately though, while the price went up, the quality of tea went down. The teas are now served in a smaller tea-for-one teapot, which is about a 2-cup pot, whereas before you were served tea in a 6-cup pot, and you had a tea cozy that went on top that kept your tea nice and hot since it was a larger size. But now that you get unlimited teas, the teas are served in a much smaller size, so you can get more flavors at a quicker pace. All right, so let's go over the tea list. For the Orangery of Lady Grey, their Lady Grey is basically like an Earl Grey with a little bit more citrus. It just kind of tasted like a weak orange tea, if I'm going to be honest. It didn't have enough of the tannins from the tea for me to really give it that like oomph that I want from an Earl Grey. All right, then you got the London Strand Breakfast. This is basically an English breakfast tea. As far as like a traditional tea, this is what you get on this menu. I did appreciate that this one was brewed properly. It was served piping hot and definitely steeped for at least the 5 minutes. So it was nice and strong and bitter. You kind of want that bitterness in a tea to pair with the strength of the foods. But if you are looking for something that has a true tea taste, your London Strand Breakfast is going to be the one. The third black tea is the Nutty Chocolate Flavor Assam. This one is an Assam paired with hazelnuts and chocolate. When you smell this tea, you really get hit with the hazelnut. The roasted chocolate was definitely much softer in the background, the hazelnut being the main flavor you got out of this tea. Just like the other 2 black teas, I feel like this one didn't have enough full body, but I find that this is a weird flavor to put on a menu like this. If someone is new to flavored teas, chocolate is kind of a weird one for some people because they expect much more out of a chocolate taste. And then when you taste it in tea form, it's this super subtle, light, nutty taste. Kind of strange to have it on a menu like this that is so simplified, because it's definitely not going to be everybody's favorite. And the last of the flavored black teas is the spicy chai. I find it interesting that they call it a spicy chai because that is not what I would take away from this one in particular. It does have a nice spice, but it's just a more classic soft chai spice with it. The unique thing about this blend is that it's a black tea and a rooibos, which makes it a little bit softer. Not quite a spicy chai, it's much more like a soft, like soothing chai, but it doesn't quite stand up in the way that I need it to all the flavors that are on the menu. The flavors were so strong, and this soft chai is just like, it's just not enough. Next up, we have our exotic mango and ginger, our one and only green tea of the menu, which I quite like. I have had this tea before at Disney though, so it was a little bit of a letdown to not get a new green tea. Decent flavor, the mango's nice and fruity. Ginger gives it a little bit of zing, which makes it fun to pair with the foods. I found that this one went really well with the curry dish. And to finish, we have our 3 caffeine-free selections. You got your herbal, your rooibos, and your fruit blend. For the herbal, they did a lemongrass peppermint. It is mostly lemongrass. When you look at the leaves, it is a very small percentage of peppermint to lemongrass. Lemongrass is another one of those deceptive flavors for people who are tea novices. When you hear lemongrass, you're going to think, I'm going to get a zesty, lemony, fruity tea. But lemongrass tea is so much more soft and nutty. It's very mellow. And then when you hear peppermint, you think you're going to get that strong peppermint taste. But since this blend, the peppermint is so mild and the lemongrass takes over, you get kind of just a really mild herb tea, which, I don't know, it didn't really pair with anything. And then we have our rooibos selection, the Red Bush Caramel Velvet, another tea that I have had on Disney property. So I was excited to have this again because I liked it, but I've already had it on property. This one is basically just creamy, sweet rooibos with some caramel. Aside from the green tea, this is probably one that I kept going back to this one. And last, but maybe the most interesting, is this black currant and lavender hibiscus blend. The description is also interesting on this one. It's very abstract. Rich and fragrant, this herbal blend delivers the essence of autumn fiery golden leaves, vibrant holly berries, and fields of amber harvest. I really didn't get any of those notes in there. I got just like tart hibiscus. Autumn fiery golden leaves. Is that supposed to be hibiscus? For a fruit blend, Usually in a tea menu like this, you want it to be tart, but you want it to have a nice sweet finish and not be too sour. This one was leaning on the sour side because the black currant wasn't quite juicy enough and sweet enough to combat the tartness from the hibiscus. And then you just threw in some lavender on top of it, and it's just like this floral, not quite sweet. It's like floral, earthy tart. All right, so that is your list of teas. It feels very corporate. This menu feels like it doesn't have much heart and soul into it. When I'm saying menu, I keep referring to the tea menu. The food I'm going to talk separately. I actually quite enjoyed the food, but the tea menu is just like, it was just slapped on after. It's like all the thought and effort went into the food, and then they were just like, oh yeah, this is like a tea, isn't it? I remember going to some kind of conference that was for like a restaurant expo, and they were telling you, if your menu is more than 2 pages, you need to start over. Like 6 page menus, like your menu is too confusing. Like, yeah, if you're a restaurant, tea menus are totally different. Anyone who's come into my shop, they've never bragged about another shop being like, they had 6 teas. They've always said, like, oh, the tea shop I went to on vacation, they had 8 walls of tea. There's no way you can have nearly as many tea as they did. The amount of tea it's a big deal with tea drinkers. We love our variety of tea. When I look at the flavors, I don't really see anybody thinking of like how these teas might taste with the food that they're serving. Previously, the menu had tons of traditional teas, which are great for pairing because they're such a blank slate. And those teas without the flavorings can kind of linger on your tongue more, and they go a lot better with the savory bites. That being said, all the food that was served, not that savory. So I can kind of see, like, okay, well, maybe we're going to go more flavored teas because they're going to go better with these extremely, sweet or dense food items that we're going to have. And so I can see the flavored teas needing to kind of stand up to that, but the flavors that they chose don't go with the flavors that they chose for the food. It doesn't make any sense. One flavor that's desperately missing on this tea menu is a berry black tea, a berry fruit blend, something rich with like an actual berry taste. Black currant does not count as a berry. Black currant is so savory and floral. It is not that kind of sweet, refreshing note that people want to have when they're pairing with something maybe a little bit more dense. And aside from not having any traditional teas or any fun, unique flavors, the menu is just so small. And I find that the bargain that you got with getting the unlimited teas in a smaller menu versus only one pot of tea in a bigger menu, I would much rather have more tea options, and I would pay extra for each pot of tea so that I could have more options to choose from. And if that's the only way to get fancy teas, I would pay the add-ons to get a pot of tea. In fact, I found it a little sad that there was no add-on that I could do. I would pay anything to get a little extra something for the tea people. And it kills me on this menu because, they're trying to be fancy on this menu. They're expecting you to have money. We all sat down, we all prepaid $100 to be here. And so they're like, oh yeah, do you want to add on caviar for $150? No, but can I add on tea? That's like good. They're allowed to get so fancy with the champagne and the drinks, but the tea, no. I did some more research to figure out what are these blends? Is this a collection that they already have? And I found out that all these teas are just part of Twining's loose leaf tea collection that is available in the UK. When you look at the rest of the loose leaf tea collection, you'll see that there's actually lots of really cool traditional loose leaf teas that they could have included, but they didn't. So like they have all these teas. I know they have the traditional fancy teas. And you can even see some of the flavors that they used to have at the Grand Floridian are still available there, like the fig and rose white tea. That one was one of my favorites. That one is still available on the UK site for Twinings. So it's like clearly Twinings didn't come up with anything original for the Grand Floridian. Something as simple as having a Grand Floridian breakfast, something that I could buy and take home and keep drinking. Tea is one of those things that it's a sensory nostalgic experience. None of these teas are that tea. None of them scream, ooh, this is that Grand Floridian. Like, this takes me back to that afternoon. These are all flavors I've had before. The exotic mango and ginger, I had that at Skipper Canteen. So I think of Skipper Canteen when I think of that tea. I don't think of the Grand Floridian. And sure, what's the big deal? Why complain? It's afternoon tea at the Grand Floridian. How fabulous is that? How lucky are you to be able to go to have tea at the Grand Floridian? Yeah, but I feel like I should have a say in how that experience went. I would love the experience to be even better. I want it to be better for everybody, not just for me, but I know lots of people, specifically all of you, all of our tea followers. All of us deserve so much better than this. Disney and Twinings have the capability of giving us better. And I think that's what upsets me the most is that I know what they can do. I've seen the teas that they had previously. It's just, I don't know who dropped the ball with this tea menu. Was it Twinings? Was it Disney? I mean, it's Florida. It's Disney. What do you expect? It's not fancy tea in England. I, these comments I don't understand. I expect fancy because I'm spending $100. That is what's telling me that it's fancy. Just because it's Disney, I'm not assuming it's like a fake afternoon tea for kids that's just like a princess tea. No, it's a real tea. These are real dollars that I'm spending. And the good teas, they're not just for the tea snobs, it's for tea itself. Tea needs to be defended. Tea is a wonderful drink. And for the people who don't appreciate the tea, this is that little moment that they can be like, oh, this is really amazing. This is nice. Maybe I do actually appreciate tea. Now, I'm not necessarily hating on the quality of the tea that was served. They did actually serve loose leaf tea, so it did have a fuller taste than what you would have gotten if it was just a tea bag. But it's not quite the same as like a higher dollar tea. Round of applause for the bare minimum, Twinings. You gave us loose leaf tea. You gave us black teas, a green tea, and caffeine free. Done. Yep, just feels like a formula. Just feels like, this is going to make money. This is all we need to do. We don't need to do anything else. And they don't. They don't need to do anything else. They will make money on this. This place will be sold out. We haven't had this experience in over 5 years. We're gonna go. The food could have been terrible and we'd been like, hello, serve me tea, please. And this is by no means the worst tea that I've had at afternoon tea before. One time I went to an afternoon tea and all they had was instant tea. So, things happen. I understand that some experiences are more about the food and the atmosphere, not the tea. I always hope that it's about the tea. My little tea heart just prays. But Disney, you have the capability. You're charging enough. It should be there. Do I recommend this experience? 100%. Do not let my bickering, any of that stop you. This is a magical experience. The service is wonderful. The setting is great. You're at the Grand Floridian, right next to the Magic Kingdom, having afternoon tea. I mean, what more could you ask for? Aside from better tea. I just want to prepare you for what you're getting into. You're not going to have some kind of special curated tea that's like a special Disney tea. It's just going to be tea. But the food is going to be magical. The setting will be great. The service will be spectacular. The price point, it's expensive, yeah. But it's the Floridian. They have such limited seating. This is obviously something that they can price. I can only hope that they hear us tea fans and that one day they change the menu, maybe update it, maybe some seasonal flavors. That would be nice. Honestly, all of this could be fixed with some seasonal flavors. You add like in 4 seasonal teas, that would at least be something. Will you be finding me there anytime soon? Yeah, probably. As soon as I can get a reservation. In case you have no idea who I am, my name is Nicolette. I am one of the Nicks of Trader Nick's Tea. It's me and my husband. We are Nick and Nick of Trader Nick's Tea. And we make Disney-inspired teas. And I have been working in tea shops selling loose leaf tea since I was in high school. And it has now been over 20 years since I've been in the loose leaf tea business. So when it comes to tea, I expect perfection. Now on to the good part, which was the food.